Coming off the fight of the year between Alex Pereira versus Khalil Rountree, the crowd was roaring. There was blood everywhere. Everybody was on the edge of their seats. I was screaming. I almost lost my voice. And now next week, we're going to be back at the Apex. Tatsuro Taira and Brandon Royval. We go from light heavyweights that put your lights out to two grapplers in the flyweight division. Well, I can't really say Brandon Royval is a pure grappler, but we got two guys that like to mix it up on the ground. We got an okay Apex card. I mean, we had the Pearce card. We had 307. We had Noche UFC. Like, we were getting a little bit spoiled, I guess. We just can't have it nice all the time. Apex, we're up to UFC Vegas 98. So UFC Vegas 100 is coming up real quick. I'm going to go through. I'm going to give you my early leans for every fight on the card from the early prelims all the way to the main event. And let me just tell you this before we get into these breakdowns. This is the early picks video. So this is without an extensive amount of tape study, basically just going off of what I know about them already and how I think the matchup is going to go. So if you really want my official picks, wait for the official picks video later in the week, drop it on Wednesday. But this is where you can see where my head is at on all these fights coming up. So let's go all the way to the bottom. Got Clayton Carpenter and Lucas Rocha. Clayton Carpenter, I don't know where this dude's been because he looked like a pretty good prospect and undefeated guy. Looked great on the Contender Series, comes into the UFC, gets a submission, and then we haven't seen him in like over a year. It might have been 2 years, honestly. I don't know where this dude's been, but I hope that he's been improving because he's young, he has a lot of potential, and I think this is probably a solid matchup for him against Lucas Rocha. Rocha's got a lot of fights, but if you watch his fight on the Contender Series, he was getting taken down a lot in that first round, and he got controlled a lot. Now, he found his way back up to his feet. I think he got taken down like 4 times. So you like to see that he's got the ability to get back up to his feet. But ultimately, get into round 2, and the guy shoots a takedown, and he knees him in the face. So then he gets a contract. Of course, you get a knee KO on the Contender Series. You're going to get a contract. He hasn't fought since. So it's been about a year since he fought on the Contender Series. He was on last year's season, and we're almost at the end of this season. So it's been out about a year. I hope he's improving as well. I hope he's literally trying to just go to Dagestan and trying to improve that wrestling game because it's going to get tested here. I think Clayton Carpenter is probably going to shoot a lot of takedowns, probably going to have a lot of success with his top pressure, and I think he could find another submission win. But at the end of the day, Lucas Rocha, crazy good record. I don't know who he's beaten, but they're probably not Clayton Carpenter. Overall, I'm kind of leaning Clayton Carpenter in this one with the takedowns. Durable guy. Solid striking, too. I mean, he's not like a fish out of water on the feet, and I think he can be able to handle himself on the feet. He just can't dive into a knee like the last guy did that Lucas Rocha fought. So, give me Clayton Carpenter for an early pick. Dan Argueta, Cody Haddon. I like this Cody Haddon guy. I actually bet on him to win by submission on the Contender Series. This was the first or second week, if I remember correctly, of the Contender Series early on. So Contender Series isn't even over, and he's already getting a UFC fight. Love to see that. So he's an active dude. On the feet, I love his boxing. Real crisp. He dropped Billy Brand with a shot and then jumped on him and grabbed the rear naked choke. He was kind of piecing him up before that, too. The guy was just super tough, and he had to sub him to get him out of there. It's a nice little plus money cash there. So I like Cody Haddon. I love him. He's made me some good money. But I do hate taking these guys that come off the Contender Series and they fight a vet. And Dan Argueta is a tough vet. Like his UFC record doesn't look like it's extensive because he's had 2 no contests. And in the no contest, one of them he was dominating, and the other one he actually lost. So I don't know what to think with Dan Argueta. I just don't really like his gas tank. I don't really like his striking. But you know he's gonna go and try to win the fight by all means. Like he's gonna go in there trying to push a pace, trying to take you down, and trying to put you through hell. So could he have success against Cody Haddon in this spot? Probably. I kind of see him having success with the takedowns early on. But as the fight goes on, I think Cody Haddon can start to piece him up a little bit. I don't think his jiu-jitsu is anywhere near like the Jean Matsumoto's that we saw sub Daniel Argueta. But at the end of the day, it may not even need to be that good. So I am going to take Cody Haddon for an early pick. But this is one where you're going up against a guy making his UFC debut against a vet that is pretty tough and has a really solid wrestling game. So very shaky one for me, but I am going to lean Cody Haddon. I'm probably just going to look to see, dive back into the film, see how he deals with takedowns. But on the feet, I think he should piece up Dan Argueta. I think that gives him a good advantage in this fight. Chris Barnett, Junior Tafa. If anybody out there got the Junior Tafa line when it was like plus 500, please let me know. Because I remember seeing that tweet and I'm like, it can't be real. It cannot be real. Because Chris Barnett he was like minus 500. It shouldn't be minus 500 to anybody. I love Chris Barnett. Can't help but love him. Okay, Beast Boy is a fan favorite. But he's a fan favorite for a reason because he's so fat, but he is somewhat athletic. And he's going to go out there trying to take your head off. Like the spinning back kick, or spinning head kick, I should say. He could pull something out here. He could. But the fact is, it's probably going to be a kickboxing battle. And I will take Junior Tafa to win a kickboxing battle against Chris Barnett. And I don't really see Chris Barnett trying to mix in a takedown. He's never landed one. I don't even think he's ever attempted one. And his last one was against Jake Collier like 2 years ago. And he really just won because Jake Collier gassed out. So, I mean, he was kind of getting pieced up and then he gassed out. And then Chris Barnett just put all 300 pounds on him, laid on him, and ground and pounded him out. I don't really see Junior Tafa gassing out here. But if he does, and he ends up on his back, you ain't getting Chris Barnett off you, man. It's a big boy. It's a big, thick, short mofo on top of you, throwing hammer fists. I would probably tap out just for the mere fact of this dude's laying on me. Get the fuck off me, okay? Junior Tafa is probably going to knock him out, though. I will say that. A lot sharper, faster, more power, and longer, taller. He's got all the advantages here. I think he should probably win. Give me Junior Tafa. Temba Gorimbo, Niko Price. So Temba, I've always been a fan of Temba, okay? Because I just love his story. You can't help but not love his story. And I DM'd him before he blew up. Before, I think he has like hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of followers on Instagram. I think I DM'd him when he had like 10,000 followers. Probably going to be harder to reach him now. But I like him because he comes into every fight with a mission. He's got a big purpose. He's got a lot of heart. And when he came into the UFC, I didn't really think he was that skilled. But you kind of seen the skills come along while he's been in the UFC. And I love to see that because the guy's a hard worker and he's got a lot of physical attributes that not a lot of other people have. Fast, strong, long, and then he's building his skills. So I think he's coming along pretty well here and he's getting a good test for where he's at. Niko Price is a test where he's just so tough. He's not going to give up on anything and he's going to make you fight him. If you're not, a lot of people just don't fight like Niko Price. Like Niko Price is just going to be forward pressure all the time, trying to put you in the pocket and box it out with you. A lot of people aren't used to that because they're more calculated and try to pick their shots, or they're Marabin and grab your hip and knee you in the thigh type of thing. Niko Price ain't that dude. You don't give a fuck. So this is a good test for Temba. I think Temba can get takedowns on Niko. I think he could crack him with a big shot too. His striking has come along. The leg kicks, just a big overhand right. It's super fast. I think he probably beats Niko Price here. But he does have to watch out with, getting into a brawl, maybe gassing out late, but his cardio has looked pretty solid. He's been to a few decisions in the UFC and won them. So give me Temba Gorimbo to win this one. Keep the train rolling, man. You never know with Temba. Jonathan Pearce, Pat Sabatini. So, two grapplers mainly. I think Jonathan Pearce is the better striker, straight up. But I don't know that this is going to be a striking match. And I don't think that Pat is like some terrible striker. The thing is, we've seen him get chinned by Damon Jackson. Getting chinned by Damon Jackson is not a good look. He also got chinned by Diego Lopez. That's a better look. But it's still the fact that he's getting chinned. So I think he's a little bit chinny. Not to say that Jonathan Pearce is a big power puncher, because he's not really a guy getting a bunch of knockouts. But he can take you down, and he can land a lot of ground and pound. I think he could take down Pat, but Pat might be welcoming that, because Pat's not a guy that wants to stay on the feet. So if he gets taken down, he's be like, all right, now we're in my world. Not that it's not your world, but now we're in a world where I can feel comfortable. Maybe he can hit a sweep. Maybe he can get on top. And I think he is very strong on top. If he can get Jonathan Pearce on his back, then he's in the driver's seat. Because I think him on top, that's beautiful for him. He doesn't want to be anywhere else. He doesn't really want to be on his back playing jiu-jitsu, but he wants to be on top with a heavy base and just try to muscle you up. So I think this is a pretty close fight. I think if Jonathan Pearce just wanted a jab and leg kick his way to a win, I think he probably could. But I just don't really see him doing that. That's not really his game. His game is to go in there and chain takedowns and try to wear you out, land ground and pound, and try to drown you. And Pat could fall into that trap, but I think he can give him a little bit more of a fight, especially if he can get takedowns himself. At the end of the day, I'm still kind of leaning Jonathan Pearce's way for an early pick here, just because I think his striking will give him a slight edge. But Jonathan Pearce on 2-fight losing streak. Not a good look. Pat Sabatini's coming off a loss. So two guys that really kind of need a win. They're probably going to go out there and do anything they need to find the W. So Jonathan Pearce is the early pick. CJ Vergara, Ramazan Temirov. Haven't really watched too much of this Ramazan guy. I tried to find some tape on him. Kind of hard. His last couple fights have been in Ryzen. First round KOs. I watched his highlight reel. The dude looks fast as shit. This is flyweights we're talking about, so of course they're going to be fast. But he's fast as shit, and he hits hard. I think he's got like 10 first-round knockouts. Now, I don't know if they're against bums or not, but I respect Ryzen, and his last 2 wins are in Ryzen. I think they were both round 1 KOs. So I think this Temirov guy is pretty good. Also checked out his IG. Dude's got like over 600K followers. From Uzbekistan, so that's usually the case when you get one of these guys that has a good record. They got all the Uzbekistan people following them. That's cool. I think he could probably beat CJ Vergara because CJ Vergara doesn't really do anything super well. He's just tough. He's durable. He's got good cardio. And he's willing to go in there for 3 rounds and give it his all. He doesn't really have any quit in him. So Temirov's probably going to have to separate him from consciousness or at least hit him with something big and follow up very quickly. Otherwise, CJ is going to try to survive. He's going to try to outlast you, and he's going to try to take over as the fight goes on. I think Temirov probably does win this one because I don't think his cardio is going to be shit. I think he's going to be more explosive early on. He'll probably take the first. He could probably take the second. I think he could probably get takedowns on CJ. CJ doesn't have the best takedown defense, but he is pretty scrambly. I don't really see Temirov just holding him and wet blanketing him. Not really his game and not really something that you can do to CJ. So I think this will be a little bit closer than the odds entail. I know Temirov's, I think he's minus 250, minus 300, somewhere in there, which is a little bit dicey for a guy making his UFC debut, but I do think he's a better fighter, and I'm going to take him for an early pick. Up the card, we got the feature prelim of UFC Vegas 98. Gotta love it. Chidi and Njokuani and Jared Gooden. So Chidi is a dude that I've always kind of looked at, and I'm like, dude, you are good. You just gotta go for it. Like, you just gotta go for it. And sometimes he does. Sometimes he does go for it, trying to look for that knockout. And he finds it. But when he doesn't find it, he starts to slow down, starts to gas out, his opponent starts to take over, and then he quits. Other times, he doesn't go for it, and he's kind of fighting a little bit more conservative, and then he gets into these point fights where I feel like if he just let off a little bit more, he'd be winning. And he gets into these close fights, like against Doraev, I think it was. I was actually at that fight, where he was trying to defend takedowns, but he was also landing some good shots. I think he lost that one by split. Might have been unanimous, but it was close. And then his last fight, he won by split, but it really shouldn't have been a split because he was doing the better damage, and Reese McKee was just trying to hold on to him the entire time. Going up against Jared Gooden, Jared Gooden's a guy that's going to make you fight him. So I think Chidi's going to have to go into this one with, I got to knock him out early. Because if he doesn't, I think Jared Gooden probably takes over. Because Jared Gooden, not the most durable guy. He can get shinned, but he has power in his hands. He's got decent cardio. He's coming off a submission win, so you love to see that. Not really a submission grappling kind of guy. But he's a guy that can take some damage, keep walking forward, and kind of outlast you. I think he could actually do that here against Chidi. Now, who's the better fighter? Chidi. Chidi's the better fighter, no doubt. But I think it comes down to the cardio, comes down to the mentality. I think Jared Gooden might have the better mentality to pull off a win here against Chidi. Chidi is a little bit older. He's a freak at welterweight, though. He's huge, 6'3". He moved down from middleweight, and he's so much bigger than a lot of these guys. So we'll see how that works out. I think Jared Gooden could probably pull this one off. If he doesn't get chinned early, I think he probably takes over. I'm kind of leaning Jared Gooden here to win this one. Abdul Razak Alhassan and Josh Fremd. This one, to me, this one screams Josh Fremd getting his head taken off. Okay? Because if you watch the last fight with Abdul Razak Alhassan, he had a different fire to him against Cody Brundage. He came out looking to take heads off. And he pretty much took Cody Brundage's head off. Did they call it a DQ or a no contest? I kind of forget. I think it was a no contest. They called it a no contest. Was it elbows to the back of the head or shots to the back of the head? I think he probably had Cody on death's door, and Cody was holding on for dear life. Did he hit him in the back of the head? Probably once. But how often do they really call that? You know, like they just don't call that very often. For some reason, they did for him. So coming into this fight against Josh Fremd, I think he's going to be even more pissed off. Okay, maybe at the apex, it's going to be a little bit harder to be pissed off. But he's going to come into this one pissed off. And we've seen Josh Fremd in some pretty bad spots in his career. And if you look, even before his UFC career, he's been nuked before. If there's anybody to nuke Josh Fremd, it's probably going to be Abdul Razak Alhassan. With that said, when Alhassan loses, he's getting taken down. Josh Fremd can get takedowns, but I don't think he's the best wrestler out there. I think Abdul has somewhat improved his takedown game. And I actually look at Abdul's losses. His most recent losses are Joe Pyfer, Joaquin Buckley. Buckley's on a tear. Pyfer looks great. It's okay. Same with Josh Fremd, though, in the same sense. Petrosky, he's a solid fighter. Kopylov, solid fighter. Anthony Hernandez, solid fighter. Like, you know, they're losing to pretty good guys, but this is where I think it's probably more of a fair matchup. At the end of the day, I think Abdul is just going to be a little bit more too physical, and I think he just hits a lot harder. I don't think Josh Fremd is going to be able to take the punches, honestly. But maybe with the new gloves, he will. We'll see. But I'm going to lean with Abdul Razak Alhassan to win this one. Daniel Rodriguez and Alex Morono. This is disgusting. Ever since I saw Alex Morono court McGee, I'm done with Alex Morono. But the next fight, Alex Morono, Nico Price, was so gross. It was disgusting. It was so disgusting. The no cardio from either guy. I know we already talked about Nico Price, and I kind of gave him praise. But this was both of them, more so Alex Morono. No cardio, no ability to hurt anybody with a punch. Just looked like two old men out there, just like throwing these arm punches. Nothing really hurting each other, but they're just throwing and like eating their shots. Just that sounded weird. Morono, at this point in his career, don't like him. Okay, at the same time, Daniel Rodriguez, at this point in his career, don't really like him. I do think he's a little bit more technical of a boxer. Durability might be a little bit better. Morono's not a guy that's like super chinny, but he can get cracked and he can get put out. Daniel Rodriguez is probably my early lean. It's just a disgusting fight. But D-Rod getting wrestled up by Gaslam, not a good look. Not a good look. Gassed out in that one too. So just two guys that I just really can't trust at this point. They're older, over the 35 mark, and not really with it. So D-Rod is the early pick, but a disgusting fight to me. Julia Polastri and Corey Mckenna. So I really like this Julia Polastri just from like a fan's perspective. She usually goes out there trying to hurt you. She's trying to do some damage. Okay, and when she throws, she doesn't even care what's coming back at her. No head movement. She'll take anything you throw at her and just keep throwing. Great. Love that for women's MMA. But for winning UFC fights, I don't know if it's the best. Now, she actually used some offensive wrestling in her last fight, which was a shock to me. Because she was kind of getting pieced up by Knudsen. I don't think she's going to have to do that here against Corey Mckenna because Corey Mckenna is not really the best striker. She's got those T-Rex arms. I think she got like the shortest reach in the UFC or something like that. But she does have to just clear that up for her future in the UFC. Corey Mckenna, she's probably going to be looking for takedowns. She got subbed her last time by Amarim. I give her a pass. I think Amarim's unbelievable on the ground, especially off her back and especially on top. Just on the ground, she's one of the best in women's MMA right now. Just pure jiu-jitsu. Taking her down, not a smart move, but that's what Corey Mckenna does. She just takes people down and tries to grind you out. I think she can get Polastri down here. I think she can, but is it going to outweigh what happens on the feet? Because I don't think Corey Mckenna is going to be landing a ton on Polastri. I think she can if she throws, but she's also going to have to eat what's coming back at her. And I think Polastri will probably get the better of the striking exchanges, and I don't know that Corey McKenna's takedowns are going to make up for what happens on the feet. So I'm kind of leaning Polastri, but I think this is a pretty close fight. And it honestly, it's probably just going to come down to what the fuck the judges think. Because every fucking week, it comes down to, all right, let's go to the judges. Split decision. This fight, we're going to favor the grappler. Cool. Next fight, we're going to favor the striker. Next fight, we're going to favor the guy stalling up against the cage. There's no consistency. It's very tough to predict what the fuck the judges are going to score. So this is probably what it comes down to. And yeah, you're at the mercy there. So Polastri is the early lean though. Grant Dawson, Rafa Garcia. I like Grant Dawson. I like his style when it comes to getting guys on the ground because he's not a guy that really tries to grind you out with control time. He gets you down. He wants to get to your back. He wants to land ground and pound. His last fight against Joe Solecki was a bit of a snoozer because Joe Solecki is a jiu-jitsu guy who has a really solid guard and did nothing to get back up to his feet. He would literally just use his guard to create space to where Grant Dawson couldn't reach him with ground and pound. And he just wrote out the decision. It was like, what are you going to do? Joe Solecki's not getting up, but he's also just playing it safe from the bottom. He had no chance to win. Grant Dawson's like, fuck, I guess I just got to win this by decision. If you look at his record, the dude's a finisher on the ground. Rafa Garcia, on the other hand, shorter dude. Not the best offensive grappler, but he does have pretty solid offensive takedowns. And on the feet, I think he's a pretty solid striker. Not going to blow you away in any aspect, but he's got good cardio. He's pretty durable. And good wrestling, good striking. Good all around. I just don't know if it's going to be enough against Grant Dawson here because I think Grant Dawson does get him down. And he does do some ground and pound. Maybe tries to look for a submission, but I think Grant Dawson wins this one. And unless he gets, chin like a Bobby Green with a jab or something like that, I think he wins this one, no doubt. So give me Grant Dawson. Brad Tavares, Jung Young Park. So a rebooking that was supposed to happen back in July, I believe it was. I think it was Park that fell ill, and they had to call it off after he weighed in. Very weird. But here we are. Jung Young Park. He was on that great win streak, man. The Iron Turtle was that dude until he faced Andre Muniz, who's just a giant compared to Jung Young Park, and just outmuscled him. Didn't do anything in the striking, just took him down, laid on him. Took him down, laid on him. Park would try to get back up to his feet, drag down to the ground again. And then at the end of every round, Park would reverse position, land some ground and pound, and it came down to a split. Pretty much because of the last 30 seconds of almost each round was Jung Young Park landing shots. And that almost won him the fight. I like Jung Young Park's game because it's very high volume on the feet. He tries to break you down. He's got great cardio. He tries to outlast you. He'll mix in some takedowns. But there's not a huge danger factor when you get in there with him. Yes, he's got some UFC finishes, but it's like Joseph fucking Holmes, who's ass. Albert Duraev, who he just gassed out. There's a part to Park where it is dangerous because if your cardio is not in check, you're gonna feel it by the end of the first, going into the second half of the second. You're gonna start to feel it. I think Brad Tavares has pretty solid cardio. I think he has solid takedown defense. His chin right now is kind of the main concern because he's been knocked out in 2 of his last 3 fights, I think it is. The chin's the main concern. But Park's not really the biggest hitter. So it kind of comes down to if Brad Tavares can stuff takedowns, can he out-volume Jun Young Park or at least land the better shots? I don't know. Because I think Jun Young Park, his striking is still improving. I think he can get a couple takedowns on Brad Tavares. And I think Jun Young Park's cardio is going to be better. And he's probably going to be the one moving forward most of the time. So I'm going to lean with Park. Probably by decision. Could be a late stoppage. But I think overall Park might have what it takes to beat Tavares at this point. So give me Jun Young Park. Brandon Royval, Tatsuro Taira. Weird fight to me, just because we truly don't know a ton about Tatsuro Taira. Yes, he won his last fight, but it was an injury. Yes, he caused that injury, but how often are you going to cause that type of injury? His best win is Alex Perez, who, before he knocked out Mateusz Nicolau, was like a laughingstock of losing all these fights, never getting into the cage because he's had all these canceled bouts, and now all of a sudden beating Alex Perez is like, oh shit, we got a title contender here in Tatsuro Taira. So I got my concerns on the Taira side. And I have some appreciation for Brandon Royval because the guy is tough. He's got good cardio. Never quits on himself. And he's fought really good competition. Just beat Brandon Morono. Great win there. Brandon Morono, former champ. He gave Pantoja a pretty solid fight. Just couldn't get off his back. Because Pantoja is he's the best grappler in the flyweight division. He is. Some people might say Taira is, but he hasn't proved it at this level. Royval has a chance to win this fight. He's got to make Tatsuro Taira uncomfortable and uncomfortable early. I think he's got to push the pace. He's got to push the volume. He has to stuff takedowns. And when he's on his back, he has to stay safe. This is one where I'm kind of leaning back and forth. I do think Taira is very good. And I think Brandon Royval is very good as well. I'm probably just going to lean with the experience here in Brandon Royval. Now, Taira's a guy that's been fighting at the Apex. Very comfortable at the Apex. I think the only time we've only seen him like not look good is when he fought in front of a live crowd and he got dropped by Edgar Chairez. So they're keeping this man in the Apex. Still very young. Still improving. How old is Royval? I got to look that up. Definitely got to look that up because I'm not taking him if he's over like 32, 33. That's when they drop off. But I think I am going to lean with Tatsuro Taira right now. I do got to look at it a little bit more. I know there's been some stuff going on with Royval and his camp. He's had to move camps because the Factory X gym has pretty much just gone to shit, apparently. Wild stuff. Not something you want to have to deal with leading up to a fight, let alone a big fight like this, a main event at the Apex. So I think Taira is going to be my early lean here. Definitely one I want to look at a little bit more. But those are the early picks. I appreciate you for watching. Please stay tuned for the Dana White Contender Series breakdown coming soon to the channel. Like and subscribe for me. Official picks on Wednesday. Best bets on Friday. Maybe we'll throw another live throughout the week talking about the card. And we got Sunday service tonight. So stay tuned for that. We got a lot to talk about from UFC 307. Appreciate y'all. Till next time. Hey, Job Picks. Yeah.